Thank you for joining us again here on another episode of Get Ready News. I'm Mark Lindsted. This is my brother David Lindsted, and we're here to look at some news articles through the lens of the Bible and how we think our worldview should be construed is through our reading of the Bible and understanding of God's Word.
Absolutely. It should be something that directs our life. So you need to find something that's a good measure, a good measurement tool that you can measure yourself and make sure that you're on the right side and things are going the right way.
As we form our own opinions about things that are happening in the world, we definitely should let the Bible impact those opinions, and we should be siding with God whenever we can on these. I don't think there's an instance we should ever side away from God, I would say. And there are times you're going to find that your opinion may actually be contrary to that of God, and it's our job in our Christian lives to align ourselves back with God on those things.
That's right. Wherever the Bible touches, the Bible is the right source. And if it's something that we think is against that, then the Bible's the right way. Yeah. And we need to adjust our thinking according to the Bible.
Definitely. Well, there's some interesting things going on this last week. I know some Chicago stuff was happening.
Oh, yeah.
And it was really interesting to see how the Democrat Party had their national convention.
Yep.
And it was interesting that they put up a border wall around it that you had to have an ID and approval to get through.
Yes, I saw this. It was kind of funny. I watched a news guy trying to get a guy from Argentina into the DNC because, he came across the border with no restriction and he wanted to go into the DNC. And believe it or not, he couldn't get in until he had the proper permit and the proper ID.
You mean they wanted to know who was coming into their borders?
Absolutely. And then, so he took him to get a proper ID.
Yeah.
And they rejected his ID because he had no proof of who he was.
Well, so what's good for me is not good for thee?
Yeah, something like that.
So the Democrats wanted their own border, but not for the country?
Exactly. It was kind of a double standard there, I would say.
Wow.
We come in the country, doesn't matter who you are, but if you want to come into our private meeting, you cannot.
Well, and I thought it was very interesting to watch it, as you would say, those people eat themselves in a way as they fought against their own people. They hated on each other. The Palestinian supporters hated the homosexual supporters, and the homosexual supporters hated and then some of them did both, and it's kind of hard to understand how you can support Islam and homosexuality because that's not allowed in Islam.
That's right.
It's such a strange party, and they've been trying to call J.D. Vance weird. I mean, that's one of the biggest pushes is like, well, he's just weird.
I find that a bizarre way to attack Trump and J.D. Vance. If you have something of substance, you use that.
Yeah.
But when you have nothing, you say, they're weird.
Yeah. Well, if you watched anything of the DNC, there's one side that's weird, and I don't think it was J.D. Vance and Donald Trump.
No. Did you see the girls sing the American anthem on day 2, the ladies group? It was so horrific. I can understand getting up there and trying to sing in front of all those people and getting nervous, but these ladies were absolutely terrible.
Well, they were off on their lines.
Oh, yeah.
Then when the song was played with lines, they still were off on their lines. They didn't go, we're wrong, and go pick up where they should and continue.
The one woman on the far left wasn't even singing. She had her phone out taking her own picture while they're up there. Make kind of a mockery out of it. It just didn't seem very American to me. And I noticed, in the years before, they've been getting less and less American and less for God. In fact, I think, was it 2016, they just went all out and basically denied God.
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, we saw it as far back as Obama when they removed most of the American flags from the stage. And, you see Donald Trump up there, and he's got a flags plastered all across the stage, and then you see Obama or Hillary, and there's no flags at all. And that was really telling of what they want to support.
Absolutely. And if I remember right, in 2016, they had those people singing the saying the Pledge of Allegiance. They left out under God.
Under God, yes, they left it out.
They actually left that out.
Well, you want to talk about weird?
Yes.
I'm going to talk about the DNC and weird. I think was it a 17-foot or a 27-foot IUD picture of
Oh, yeah.
an inflatable birth control thing floating around. I mean, I don't know that anything says this is political like an IUD.
I tell you what, it's just amazing the absolute evilness out there.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
for them to take something like that and make it, I don't know even what you call it, a party favor.
Yeah, I mean, people were taking their picture with it.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would be taking my picture with a cancer molecule.
Right.
But what I want to know is the DNC and the Democrat Party really only about killing babies?
I think that's their biggest stand right now.
And of course, they veil it in women's health.
Yes.
But it's not the health of the little woman inside of the womb. It's the health of the mother, and it's really not a health concern. It's an accountability concern. I don't want to be accountability for the actions I did that caused this situation. So I want you to kill somebody else to remove my accountability.
Yeah, and they bring it in the guise of health care.
Yeah.
Like this is promoting their health when it's actually in one finite little area.
Yeah.
And it's just barbaric to think about.
Well, then we see that they're offering abortions and abortion pills and vasectomies at the DNC.
Right outside the DNC in a mobile unit, you know, I'm myself, I'm thinking, well, if I was going to get a vasectomy, I probably would have scheduled that with my doctor and I would have had plenty of recovery time. I just can't see the average guy standing in line going, hey, look,
Yeah.
I could get a vasectomy and run over there and do it.
I don't know that I want to have any medical procedure done in a van
Yeah.
in front of a Democrat convention because I know how they feel about people. People are just a means to an end for them. I know they say they're the caring party, but in my opinion, they're not very caring.
Absolutely. You listen to the speeches, and one of them we talked about was Michelle Obama.
Yeah.
And she was talking about how her dad was this, and they did this, and they wouldn't let anybody, they wouldn't let anybody get higher than the rest because we want to bring all the rest of them up.
Yeah.
And here she is worth millions and millions of dollars, and all of her constituents are still down.
I think she said something about it's bad when people take more than they need.
Yes.
And if I remember right, she's got 3 mansions that are all worth over $8 million apiece.
Yeah.
In fact, I think I remember seeing a clip that showed her pantsuit or whatever it was like almost $3,000, and her shoes were $1,500. And who only knows what else she was wearing and how much it cost. So is that not a picture of taking more than you need?
Exactly. I mean, how could they live in a mansion? I mean, there's how many people? 4 at best in their family?
Well, yeah, if their girls aren't off to college, then yeah.
So 2 people in a mansion, why aren't they living in a single wide trailer?
But we've known that they're going to be part of the political climate for many years because every president moves away from D.C. after his 2 years. He moves out. George Bush moved to Texas, back to his ranch, got away from it all. Obama is the only president who bought a mansion in D.C. and continues to try and influence politics.
Yeah, and if you paid any attention to the DNC, he was a keynote speaker.
Yeah.
Him and Michelle were both speakers, as if their opinion mattered on everything.
Well, and then you saw that interview he gave, well, I wouldn't mind a 3rd term. In fact, if I had one, it would be I just need a puppet to listen on the earpiece to what I told him to say while I conduct the business from behind.
And I think Joe Biden was the perfect person for that if that was going to happen.
Yeah.
But also, I think Kamala is just as bad. And unfortunately, she has no excuse. It's not like she has a medical problem or she's an elderly person and getting dementia. She's just not as smart.
Well, I think we saw, back to our topic here of this DNC and what they had going on, I think you said there was like 22 confirmed abortions. Now, we're
Yes.
not sure if that was from a procedure or a pill.
Right.
And somewhere I thought I had heard that 34 total had happened at the convention. And interestingly enough, why is that something you want to keep track of? Do you want to really be proud? Hey, we killed 34 babies.
Yeah. It's amazing. And I've got a slide later to when you talk to these people, they don't understand that that's a human being inside there. They will argue all day long. It's a mass of cells.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, I have a child, and my wife was pregnant, and you know that there is something in there alive that knows something.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of things swirling around that. And the sad part about this progressive idea, and I know they call it progressive because they don't want to call it what it really is, socialism.
Yes.
This has always been about controlling populations and controlling people.
Yeah, it's been that way for forever, where one group of people was not allowed to reproduce the way they wanted to reproduce naturally. They were forced a certain way.
Yeah. Well, and we saw things like eugenics come about.
Oh, yeah. And eugenics is straight from Darwin.
Yes.
Darwin's the one that started all this. In fact, his book here, and I'm telling you, the internet is getting whitewashed.
Yeah.
It took me forever to find the book with its actual title because they've erased that title. The title is The Origin of Species through Natural Selection, or
Preservation of the Favored Races in the Struggle for Life.
Yeah.
So which is a favored race?
Exactly. And we know which race that would be if you were Darwin and you were from that era and everything.
Well, let me get this straight right now. I want you to be fully informed. I believe what the Bible tells me, and that's only one race, period. The human race is one race. They all came from Adam and Eve, who then ended up through the flood. Next ancestors are Noah and his wife, and their sons and their wives. We're all one race. We're different shades of the same exact thing. In fact, we bleed the same. If we weren't the same, we couldn't transplant organs between different colors of skin.
Exactly.
And so this is all just one way to oppress another person rather than it is anything else.
You know, the thing that I find absolutely fascinating is the Bible never mentions anybody's skin color at all.
No.
It refers to them from where they came from, their region.
Yeah.
So-and-so from the Amorites, from Cush, from Tars. It was never the black person or the white person or the plaid person. It was just people that were sons of this person.
But we see in this idea of wanting to control people that you have to separate some so that you can say, okay, you're bad, you're what we don't want.
Right.
And eugenics was trying to get rid of the unfavorable people.
Right. And we did a little bit of a study right before we came on here to get a good definition of eugenics, and guess what's been whitewashed?
Yeah.
Good luck finding what eugenics really was.
Yeah, well, it's just they're going to try and promote people to procreate in a way that removes social problems.
Exactly. And the way they used to do that was they would sterilize you without your consent.
Oh, wait a minute.
And
why would they do that?
Sometimes they would just eliminate you without your consent.
Wow.
And here we have an article. This is a very interesting article. The American Eugenics Program, which included a person by the name of Mary Sanger.
Margaret, right?
Margaret Sanger.
Margaret Sanger, yeah.
And her friend Ernest.
Yeah.
And they actually participated in Hitler's regime, teaching him about eugenics in America.
Wait a minute. You mean that we can see that National Socialism tied to eugenics, tied to controlling people and deciding who's worthy to live and who's not?
Yes.
That doesn't sound very tolerant or progressive.
It does not. It sounds pretty controlling, and it sounds like what I would call the New Age order. I mean, we saw the commandments that used to be sitting there in Georgia that were blown up, where it talked about getting the population down to a controllable population and stuff.
Well, I'm embarrassed to look at this article because this is in Topeka, Kansas.
It is.
And we're from Kansas. That's very embarrassing.
What's happening here is they were at a fair, and there was 3 different types of families: a small family, a medium family, and a large family. And they were deemed fitting families because the small family had a small income and the large family had a large income. So it was directly related. So what they were saying is you're not a fitting family if you've got a large family and a small income. That's wrong. That's not the way you raise children.
Wow. So what's this quote here by Adolf Hitler mentioned in the article? There is today one state in which at least weak beginnings toward a better conception are noticeable. Of course, it is not our model German republic, but an American union.
Yes. It was very bad over here. I don't think people
Wow.
understand how big eugenics was in America and in other places as well.
Well, Margaret Sanger was not for the people. She
No,
was for
no,
certain
no, no.
people.
Yes.
And her way of doing eugenics was sterilization, of course, but the next thing she did is she's responsible for most of the abortion clinics being started in the United States.
Absolutely. She is one of the founders of Planned Parenthood. Now, they'll tell you, oh, Planned Parenthood's more than just abortion. It's other things too. But when you go to the website and you look at the services that are just highlighted on the website, I don't see anything but abortion and fornication just right here on the front.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is how to stop an STD
Yep.
with a condom, how not to get pregnant with birth control.
Yep.
If you do get pregnant, how to get rid of a pregnancy.
Yes.
And then the other thing is if you don't want to have that, or if you think you can get by with a pill to get rid of your baby, then you can do that. And this pill is this UR 486 pill.
Oh, yeah.
And what it does, it actually makes it so that the baby, I'm going to tell you that right, the baby cannot take in nutrition from the mother. So it literally starves the baby to death, and then
Then the
passes.
body ejects it because it's dead.
Yes.
It's just horrifying to think. I mean, that stuff we saw in Auschwitz.
Ugh.
We saw in the concentration camps.
Experiments on experiments on experiments.
And in fact, I think you're the one that was showing me the company that makes this pill made the gas
Yeah.
for the gas chambers in World War II.
So the company who makes this pill is a subsidiary of the company who made the cyanide gas for the Nazis during the Holocaust. So they've been about killing babies since the beginning. They've been about killing people that they find unfavorable
Yes.
since their inception.
And this all comes back to Darwin.
Yeah.
Darwin started this whole thought, and his thought was, in order to save the favored race, which would have been the white race,
Yeah.
we have
That's
to
what
get
they
rid
said.
of all the other races, and we've got to get rid of all the weak and the crippled. Because if we let them breed and get back into our race, they're just going to corrupt us and bring us back down.
Well, I think I remember somebody telling me that Darwin's real theory of evolution is that the darker your skin is, the closer you were to the ape. And the lighter your skin was, the more advanced you were. And we had to get rid of the ones who were too close to apes still.
Yep.
And that's ridiculous. If you understand that God created man and woman, and he created the human race, to think that anyone's tone of their skin pigment changes anything about them or any other value, because we're all wonderfully made in the image of God.
Yeah, I've seen pictures that were drawn, and I'm telling you, you got to find books
Yeah.
to remember this stuff because it's being changed. But there was books out there showing how the Aborigines looked close to apes.
Yeah, yeah.
And they were actually taking these Aborigines and killing them, boiling their skulls and stuff, and bringing them back as links, missing links.
Yeah. Wow. It never ceases to amaze me the evilness that men will go to. And I look a lot at this and I start to understand exactly what it must have been like to be trying to battle this as a Christian in the time when it was popularized to not like someone for the color of their skin.
Yeah. It's just unbelievable how far we've come, but yet now they're pushing us back down the slope.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you could say there were several times in American history where the different races came together and they were split apart again. You know, there was a time where our military was all together.
Yeah.
And in the early 1900s, They were segregated again. And you can see this constant struggle and constant push back and forth.
Well, I think any time that the different colors of skin get to a point where they can work together and they start settling the differences and they come together, then you start to see politicians or those who are against the way things are going, who want to sow dissension and want to be socialist or want to stop that unity. Look at Antifa. Look at what our leaders did during this time when we started coming together. And you can see that beyond a shadow of a doubt, I believe, when you watch the rhetoric from both sides. Because I remember at January 6th, Donald Trump said peacefully. He said, please, peacefully do whatever you're going to do. But then I remember them want to say that he's doing insurrection, right? He's an insurrectionist. He's got to go. We're going to prosecute everybody. But then I remember Nancy Pelosi and I think it was Rashid Tlaib and Chuck Schumer and I can't remember the other, Jerry Nadler, and they all said, sometimes you got to be violent. And this was when they were talking about Antifa. And this is all those riots starting, and they're promoting the violence. What a crazy time we live in.
You know, it just makes you wonder the motives. So, you know, one of the things that the Bible says is that our struggle or our fight is not against flesh and blood. It's not your neighbor next door. It's not the person down the street. But it's powers and authorities and things that you can't see. And you've got to be ready for this. And I can see this big, I don't know what it is, demonic Satanist push behind all of it.
It's been here for millennia. It's been here for thousands and thousands of years. In fact, it's Baal worship just hidden in another way. It's fornication. Do whatever you want. All these sexual acts, these are what we used to worship our God with. All this fornication breeds about what? Unwanted children. So what did they do back in that time? Well, they had this big statue of Baal who had his hands out, and they would put a fire under it until they turned red hot. They take their baby and literally place the baby in those hands, and they would melt and burn to death right there. And now we're just doing it where we don't see it.
That's right. It's the same thing. We are worshiping Satan by sacrificing all these children to Satan.
Well, and I've heard, and I don't know if I have any substantia to this, but I've heard that there are actual witches and Satan worshipers who will pay for abortions. And if they pay for it, they want to be in the room because they want to say, I'm the one giving this soul to the devil. Well, I hate to tell them, the soul's not going to Satan.
No.
First of all, Satan doesn't rule in hell.
No.
I don't care what anybody says. He's a prisoner in hell just like everybody else. And that soul has not reached the age of accountability, so it's going straight to heaven.
Yes. It's still absolutely sad. And I've even read articles, and we have proof, I think, Project Veritas, before it went corrupt. And he's got his new channel now that's doing good. But, you know, these people are actually selling baby parts online. And it's a big thing, getting harvesting organs and getting the T cells and stuff.
Well, there's some people who believe that ingesting these things will bring youth to you.
And you'd be amazed how many celebrities talk about it.
How bad is it going to get?
I don't know. I think really bad. I think, you know, I think that we're getting to the days of Noah. I think we're getting, and I think that we're just now starting to see what that really meant.
Well, I see this one. It says it's not a human. And I heard a guy the other day say something pretty funny. He says, well, okay, it's just like if I put a cake in the oven and you come over and open the door and you throw the cake on the floor and I say, hey, what'd you do to my cake? That wasn't a cake. It had everything it needed to be a cake, and you took it out and threw it on the ground. So what did you do to my cake? Same thing. What'd you do to the baby? It had everything it needed to be a baby, and you threw it on the ground.
This guy was arguing with this girl, and she's yelling, it was a fetus. It's a fetus. Well, that's the medical term for
offspring.
Baby. It's what we used for it. But they've got people so convinced. And I think it's ignorance. Willful ignorance.
I think
they
willful,
want to believe that, therefore they don't have to lay at night and think, what did I do?
Sure. Well, I can see this entire mentality on this side of the political or moral aisle is to deny everything, even if you know you're wrong.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, the sky is blue. No, it's not.
Yeah.
Well, look up and see this blue. I don't have to look up. It's not blue.
Yeah.
They deny, deny, deny. And we see that we're getting worse and worse. So those people who think that we're going to get better and better and better and better till the kingdom of God comes, I'd like for you to explain that one to me.
Yeah.
I see us going downhill, not uphill. And I see that we're getting worse by the day.
Absolutely. And, my last slide here is what I pictured in the days of Noah.
Yeah.
Absolute violence. It says in Genesis 6, 5, it says that the earth was full of every imagination of the heart was continually on evil.
Yeah.
And then it says over in verse 12, and God looked upon the whole earth, it was corrupted, for all flesh was corrupted its way in the earth. And God said unto Noah, the end of flesh is before me, the earth is filled with violence.
Wow.
I can remember as kids, we would try to talk mom and dad and let us watch movies that had a PG, my dad would say public garbage, and or an R rating. So it's just violence. Well, guess what? God destroyed everything because of violence.
Yeah. Well, I think about the thought of man was evil continually. And I can finally start to see that the thoughts and the imaginations of men are violent. In fact, we read in several times we've talked about this, 2 Timothy chapter 3, and it talks about men shall be lovers of their own selves. They'll be blasphemers. I can't tell you how many times I hear somebody say horrible things about God. They'll be blasphemers. They'll be unthankful. They'll be unholy. They'll be without natural affection. And I can't think of any other form of without natural affection than to kill your child.
Yes.
To go out, flat out kill your child. There'll be false accusers. We've seen that repeatedly. There'll be despisers of those that are good.
Yes.
Oh, they're weird.
Oh, yeah.
There'll be traitors. They'll be high-minded. They'll be prideful. Do we keep going? Lovers of pleasure more than lovers of God. I want my fornication. I don't want my accountability.
Yep.
I don't care what God has to say. I want my pleasures. And it just keeps on going. Having no form of godliness, denying the power thereof, from such turn away.
Yep.
Wow.
It says they will be constantly seeking after intelligence and smarts, but they'll never come to the truth.
Wow. Well, we know that the truth is Jesus Christ.
Absolutely.
And when it says the truth shall set you free, what they're meaning is when you come to Christ as your Savior, that will set you free from being a servant to sin. So I pray that as we go forward this week, that you'll rest in your security of salvation. And if you haven't done so, place your faith in Jesus Christ. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you.